But with your company helping businesses from start to finish with the pre-bid, the bid, and the post-bid phase of contracting life cycles, what are some of the three key components in all three phases?
So they're all so different. So I think the best way probably would be, what are some of the key elements that I think that you need to kind of have in place?
And for each.
And maybe potentially, some of the potential obstacles that you might have to overcome, because they are different, right? So like in the pre-bid phase, there's a lot of activities that go on the pre-bid phase. And so much of the attention probably is placed on the bidding process, right? You always hear, and there's not a lack of industry experts out there who are always talking about, this proposal or this solicitation and this contract. And so everybody's like, oh, I got to win this, I want to bid it. But I think the most important part is, what do you do before that, right? What are the activities that you have in place? What are some of the processes that you have in place to make sure that you can't chase everything, right? I kind of equate government contracting to dating. You can't date everybody. And I've got a presentation out there, Tinder partnering, right? Like, partnering in the Tinder age. You swipe left, you swipe right, because you can't partner with everyone. You can't date everyone that's out there. And so you really kind of have to, fully understand, who are you? What do you want to be when you grow up? What is it that you sell? Is the customer that you're speaking with buying what you're selling? Like that, this all seems incredibly simplified and elementary, but I would say that those are probably the hardest things for customers sometimes when I speak to them to clearly articulate to me is, what are your core services? Because, I'll get a company that says, well, we're in IT. IT is very big. What part of IT? I was like, well, we do everything. And, like I've been known to say, oh, that's a lot of BS, because you can't do everything. But you may do maybe one or two things really well. And so I would say, stay true to yourself, stay true to what your core capabilities are, and really grow and expand from that. So the pre-bid part is really good, and having a really good process for being able to, there's not a lack of opportunities to identify, but how do you discern and determine which ones you bid on, right? Because you can't bid on everything. Even big companies who have a vast number of resources, both from people, finances, and and even as far as like intel that's out there, they don't even bid everything that's out there. So having a really clear bid, no bid type of process is really kind of key, because those opportunities, as you identify them and you go through this process of determining what you want to bid and what is really aligned with your capabilities and where you performed before, is your pipeline, right? So your pipeline is the lifeblood of your company. It pretty much is like a collection of opportunities that are at different stages of levels of maturity. Some opportunities might be like the immediate, which we like to call in the industry low-hanging fruit, right? Like, what are some of the low-hanging fruits? They're going to be easy to respond to. They're immediately in front of you. You can address them or bid them right away. And then what are some of the opportunities that are maybe a little bit further down the line? So you're kind of planning this, longer timeline. And I think the one takeaway from the pre-bid process that a lot of people who are new to the government space don't quite understand, and even some that are kind of, in the space a little bit now and are still kind of new to government contracting, is that the timeline in the government space from when you identify an opportunity to when you actually win a contract, if you're so lucky to win the contract, could take anywhere between 12 to 24 to 36 months. And so that's something that you really kind of have to balance. You have to balance that portfolio out in your pipeline, and that you need low-hanging fruit, you need immediate contracts to kind of keep the lights on, right? You got to pay yourself, you got to pay your bills, you got to pay your cell phone, right? The bills don't stop. They won't take an IOU like, hey, the government hasn't awarded me this contract yet, because there's really no guarantees, right? So just in life, there is no guarantees on the government side. So being able to really understand that timeline, that it's a marathon, government contracting. It is not a sprint. And if, the quicker you understand that and accept that, I think the more successful, you'll be.